Today's episode is a little different, and that's exactly why I'm excited about it. We're talking about Packrafts, an ultra-small portable boat that lets you move seamlessly between land and water, and why they matter to NanoCruisers. My guest is Luc Mehl, author of the Packraft Handbook, someone who has spent years exploring wild places by combining walking, paddling, and thoughtful route finding. If you care about small boats, access, simplicity, and getting farther with less, I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. Thank you so much, Luc, for joining us today. Before we go anywhere else, for someone who's never heard the word Packraft, what is a Packraft and why does it exist?
In the modern era, Packraft refers to any boat that is small enough that you might consider throwing it in a backpack. And
Right.
So that generally means an inflatable boat, a one-person boat shaped like maybe an inflatable kayak, but a bit smaller.
Right.
But traditionally, this isn't a new idea. I forget what the coracle, is that a term you're familiar with?
Yes. From Ireland, right? Those boats.
I don't know. That's why I was asking you.
Yeah.
The research I've done in sort of, what came before the inflatables, and a bunch of different cultures going back thousands of years have had woven boats that they could carry on their back and then do their fishing or whatever, harvesting. I think that I should have looked up this history preparing for a conversation, but it was very soon after the invention of sort of like the rubber coated material that the first inflatable boat was created. It was like years later. It was one of the first things somebody was like, oh my God, we can make boats out of this.
Exactly.
And it's actually a pretty cool, this guy had an umbrella that doubled as a sail and like a walking stick that turned into a paddle. It was very clever. So that's existed for a while. And then the military had some applications for very light and portable boats. And then it really wasn't until the early 2000s that a recreational market took off and people recognized the value of not just a boat that was light enough to carry, but small enough to store. Like you don't need a garage and a boat, a car rack.
Right.
And it's not as awkward as a canoe, whatever. They're just really convenient boats to store and carry. And then that opens up a bunch of new waterways that maybe people hadn't had access to before.
Right. I've partially read your book. So you've got the handbooks. I've partially read that and it's fantastic. It's, boats that you can probably put in your backpack and you could probably travel around the world easily with that, right? So that opens up a lot of opportunity. So for people that have not seen that, can you describe, so it's plastic, it's kind of an inflatable boat and that you carry with you, you inflate, and what's the typical, I guess there's not typical, but there's a lot of models for that. What's it?
Yeah. So originally there was kind of one design, one boat, even if it was made by different manufacturers, but something that would accurately be called a bathtub boat because that was the shape and pretty simple to cut those pieces of fabric and assemble it. Mm-hmm. I know that you've talked with Matt from DIY Packraft, and
correct,
and he was somebody that recognized like this process is actually like not it's accessible to people and it's kind of fun, and so people could build their own boats with fairly basic designs. I think, and I haven't been following this very closely, but I think you can now build your own boat with fairly advanced designs, or you can just jump to the finish line and buy some of these boats. And
right.
And where there was just one basic model, now there's sort of a quiver, and there's something that's very light and only appropriate for getting across a pond, with no real hazard. And then there's something that's a bit heavier, more durable, performance-oriented, class 4 whitewater, 20-foot waterfall. You can find a boat for any of that, or a boat that you want for fishing or carrying meat. There's a lot of hunters and anglers using the Packraft as well. There are families using some of the larger Packrafts on sailboats just to get to shore, get back and forth like a dinghy.
Right.
And the heaviest of those options that I just described is, we're still only talking 12, 14 pounds. I'm not as good in kilos for your audience, but what's that? 20 kilos?
Yeah.
No, that's too much.
Divide by two, basically.
I went the other direction.
Yeah, you went the other direction. So it's probably 5-6 kilos, probably.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the lightest option is 2. And, that's pretty awesome. As far as what they're either PVC, which is a more durable, more accessible, cheaper fabric that's heavier. So these are the trade-offs. For a lot of folks, that's just fine to have a heavier boat that's more durable. Some folks that are going to be carrying their boats larger distances are going to pay more for a lighter fabric. And that's TPU. I'm not sure what that stands for. Thermo something urethane. It's a coated fabric. So one side is waterproof and the other side is the exposed fabric. And that's just a weight savings to have like a one-sided fabric instead of both sides coated.
Right.
And I don't know a lot about those details. I'm more of a user.
Which is great. Just wanted to set the stage for people, really. So that's great. So you see the $10 Walmart dinghy, but that's really the step up. So I've seen, for example, and I think what really appeals to the NanoCruising world, to go anywhere and kind of, I've seen those boats that have zippers on them, right? And you actually you store your tent or whatever, your food and all, you pack that in there. So that's kind of I guess that's the cruising world of that, right? And then there's the whitewater. I think a lot of it is used for that as well.
Yeah, one of the cool things about the Packraft community is that the designers, the manufacturers, and the users are all very close-knit. It's the same group of people. And so that zipper that you're describing, that was a concept that a Packrafter just kept asking for. He said, they make waterproof zippers. Can you just throw one on a boat? You just try it out. And after sort of hammering down the door with Alpaca Raft based out of Colorado, they said, yeah, shoot, let's give that a shot. And then that became a standard for most brands at this point because it keeps your cargo dry. It lowers the center of the boat, like the center of gravity. It actually becomes more stable with that gear in the tubes instead of somehow strapped on the top. It's safer in terms of entanglement. It's just a win all around, I guess, except for the price tag and except for actually having to build it with the zipper in there.
Right.
But as a user, again, I'm just going to skip those parts. And I can't skip the price tag, but I can skip having to build it.
Right. As a user, so tell me what kind of places or adventures does that open up to you that maybe other small boats can't do? I mean, you can portage canoes and kayaks and so on, but I think you can do a lot more even with that, right?
Yeah. My origins with Packrafts are that I was primarily a backpacker, and I'm in Alaska. There is a very limited road network, which is wonderful. I love that part of Alaska.
Right.
But it means that if you want to see much of the state, you've got to get off the road, and the easiest way to do that is on the rivers. Or even if I was hiking in remote mountains, those hikes often involved crossing rivers, and rivers that were too big to wade across. And so I was initially drawn to the boats as a way to extend my hiking treks.
Right.
And that's not true for everyone. Some people already have a boating background, or they're not as worried about weight. They just want something. They don't have a lot of storage space, so they're going to choose a Packraft instead of a different boat. But for me, it was really a hiking accessory. And as soon as I got it, it enabled me to either hike farther from the road or even fly in sometimes to remote Alaska and then float a river back to the road, or the other way around, to float into the wilderness and fly back out. And those are expensive trips. That's a luxury that not everybody has. But I've dedicated a lot of my life to just seeing as much of Alaska as possible. That's been a very rewarding project for me. And the Packrafts, man, they just opened up so much of the state. They opened up so much possibility for me. and they made it affordable.
Right. Right. So I was going to ask how you got into that, and you've kind of covered that. So obviously you take into that very much, and enough that you decide to write the book about it. And tell me about what brought that on. Tell us, I guess, the development of a community must have grown. I guess that's probably where the need came from that, right?
Yeah. I was really fortunate that the timing of my introduction to the Packrafts coincided with a group based mostly in Anchorage, Alaska, a group of friends that was really pushing what was possible in whitewater. And I got connected with them and built friendships with them and just loved the thrill of whitewater.
Nice.
And that's not at all what I was seeking initially, right? I just wanted a way to cross a river.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, whoa, this boat is really fun. The rapids are really fun. And again, get to go to all these cool places that I couldn't see otherwise. And we were sort of discovering things on our own largely. Like there was a disconnect between us and the boating community. And it's unfortunate because the boating community already knew a bunch of safety standards and how to read the river and how to control a boat. And we were largely coming at this as wilderness travelers. Everybody in our paddling group had covered a lot of miles on foot in remote Alaska. And so as we got more technical with our paddling objectives, we ended up needing the help of some of the experienced kayakers and leaning on the paddling community at large. And in that process, I was made aware of a bunch of bad habits that I had. And I was at an age and an athletic ability where I could get away with a lot. And I swam a lot and I was fine. And it wasn't that scary. Like I just get bounced around, but I'm, late 20s, whatever, just invincible.
Mm-hmm. Right. I remember those days.
Yeah. Wasn't that awesome?
Yes.
And what sucks about that, and you can probably relate, is that it usually takes a loss to shake us out of that invincibility.
Right. Yeah, you do.
And that's what happened to me.
That's right.
Yeah. I lost a friend in a packrafting incident. And I was shocked. Like I just hadn't understood that was a possibility. Like somewhere in my brain, I was like, yeah, you could die doing this.
Mm-hmm.
But until I knew somebody that died doing it, I just didn't give it much weight.
Mm.
And so that forced me to reassess my skill level, my priorities, my motivation. And I basically, again, I have a lot of luxuries that other folks don't, just with the community resources that I have up here. And I just stopped the clock and I went back. I just rolled back and I stopped paddling the hard stuff. And I said, okay, if I want to do this, I need to do it right. I need to get more formal training. I need to get mentors. I bought a kayak so that I could learn better boat control, so that I could afford to mess up and just roll back up.
Right.
In the Packraft, when we capsize, we can climb back into our boats. And it's actually quite liberating to be able to do that, as opposed to other crafts. But it's involved and it's not that much fun compared to just rolling a kayak. So I started over and I put a lot of time into that process, and I identified that a bunch of other packrafters were on the same trajectory that I had been on, and that were also potentially like queuing up for a loss or something to shake them out of their invincibility.
Right.
And so I started doing community outreach, little safety river orientation, even though I wasn't much of an expert. But as I put more effort into reading and training over the years and becoming an expert, then I took the teaching more and more seriously until I eventually quit my previous job and now do instruction full time.
All right. I didn't know that. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. I do lake ice rescue. I teach for the Avalanche School, and I do river and swiftwater work in the summers. And you asked about the book, and so the the book came out of
as an extension of that, I guess, right?
Absolutely. Like my personal learning journey. And then once I started teaching and I got to work with 100 people per summer and I got to watch like what clicks, what doesn't click, what are the common mistakes, that all put me in a really good position to capture my learning journey, my mistakes, and have the right vocabulary to help people not just recover when things go wrong, but to avoid the stuff going wrong in the first place.
Right. So is that something, I guess anybody can, like a kayak, you can pick that up, but you think there's a lot of skills to learn too. I guess depending what the terrain you're going into, right?
The Packraft is an exceptionally forgiving boat.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more easy to learn in a kayak, and I think your community is probably more familiar with this stuff than I am about primary and secondary stability. Like
right.
A kayak, just like my first time in a river kayak, I was like on a lake and I could barely keep the thing upright. You know, my hips are quaking and my cord is just, I felt so uncomfortable on flat water. And then you get the thing on edge and I can hang out there. I was like, what is going on here? So that's excellent secondary stability, terrible primary stability.
Yeah.
The Packraft is just the other way around. So right. Anybody, and I mean, like I've had my mom out there, my in-laws, you know, my nephew, all this stuff, just like they can sit in the Packraft and they will feel very stable for the most part. And it takes a lot of work to get the boat up on edge. And if you do, it's just flipping a coin, whether you're going to capsize or not. So it's a very forgiving boat to learn in. And the unfortunate piece of that is that paddlers like myself can build a false sense of confidence because they feel so good in the boat. And then you go down a rapid or you're on a high wind day and the boat does get on edge. And in my case, I didn't have the paddle skills to stabilize. Like I didn't have a good brace stroke. Or I didn't have the right skills to catch small eddies to kind of manage my descent down a river. So all that to say, in classes, I was able to learn how to teach it, and then in the book, try to capture that.
I think that's great. And I've seen, just searching around, because this is new to me too, I've searched around and there's schools that actually teach, you know, a 7-day outing and they teach you skills and all that, which is great too. So what would you tell a newcomer to the sport? How do they start, or where should they go first?
I think for a lot of people, the hard part is still getting the boat. And that's not that hard if you are shopping online. There's a few prominent brands in North America. There's something like 40 brands globally. There are quite a few manufacturers at this point.
Oh, wow.
And like so many of our purchasing options, there's a balance between sort of build quality and durability and weight and price. And that's going to be a different formula for everybody.
Right.
And then what I do now for myself and what I recommend folks is just to start easy, to go to the lake, to intentionally capsize and figure out a way that is effective for them to get back in their boats. I work with a handful of people in my classes that aren't able to self-rescue, aren't able to get back in the boats on their own. And so then we just figure out, well, what's the plan if you tip? Like, if you've got a couple partners that know how to respond, okay, what does that look like? How should they respond? And we practice all that. That's kind of a core of the teaching I do in the summer, but it's also something folks can figure out in a swimming pool or at the local pond. This is my strategy for all wilderness time, whether it's recreation or work, is I want to visualize what can go wrong and I want to practice what to do. And I mean, like physically practice, get my hands dirty, do it on a rainy, windy day and make it intentionally challenging, so that if it actually happens, I've already done that practice and my brain knows where to go. My body can hopefully do some of that work automatically without me having to think through it.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. Great advice for sure. Like any boat, definitely you need to practice. Like any sailboats, you want to capsize. Nobody does it, but you want to capsize it to know what to do until you're forced to do it. But anyway, that's the reality. And tell us some sort of good stories, some of the places you visited. Tell us what this opens up to you, and maybe some personal stories that you've had, and you can share. You've got a lot of experience, obviously.
Yeah. I can go a few tracks there. Like one of the styles of adventure that the Packrafts enabled were some pretty ambitious treks up and over the 3 tallest mountains in North America.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, we started with Denali.
Oh, wow.
And
You're not kidding.
No.
Right.
Yeah, this was over a couple of years, but some friends and I wanted to climb Denali, and we sort of did the math on what it was like to fly food in and fly ourselves in, and it was going to get pretty expensive. And so we figured out a way to do it from the road system and then back to the road system to skip all the flights.
Oh, wow.
And it entailed inviting a bunch of friends to help bike the road, the section of the park road that was bikeable. And we got them all lined up, and then we pulled a bunch of trailers that we'd been able to borrow from other friends. So we said, hey, do you want to go for a bike ride this weekend? And they're like, sure. And then they show up and they're like, here's your trailer. And the trailers had our climbing gear and our food, all this. So we rode in, probably a group of 12 for a couple days until the snow was no longer, or the road was no longer plowed. There was too much snow. And then all of the helpers turned around and took the empty trailers, and we started skiing and dragging our extra loads with sleds.
Wow.
And we climbed Denali, and we had this amazing trip. And then on the
That's not
backside no. And on the backside of Denali, when we reached the base camp, so where most people start their trek, another friend had gone in there and buried Packrafts in the snow for us.
Oh, wow.
And they were marked with a wand. And so we found their wand, and we pulled out our shovels and dug. And then we had duffel bags with Packrafts and paddles and extra food.
Right.
And we had to ski and carry those a couple more days, but eventually we were able to get to a river and then float another 50, 60 miles to get down to the highway.
Wow.
And it was a really rewarding trip, and such a cool way to see that much country from the summit, 20,000 and a little, down to where we reached the highway. We had a 20,000 foot descent, over the 10 days that it took us to do that, which is pretty awesome.
Wow. Yeah.
And then that was such a successful trip that the next year we went to Mount Logan, tallest mountain in Canada, and we used the boats as sleds. So we dragged them behind us, inflated on the snow.
On snow, I would think. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, on snow. And went up the glaciers and got up on the Logan, and a bunch of stuff went wrong, but that's not really the point of this story, because you asked for the highlights. And then floated a big river down back to the road system. But that was 370 miles. And again, I'm going to butcher my kilometers, but 550 kilometers?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Yeah. That's
ballpark.
Those are pretty serious tracks. They're not.
Right.
You have to prepare for that quite a bit, I would think. Yeah.
For sure. And this was super competent partners, and we're in the prime athletic years of our life and had built up to this over other years of doing really ambitious wilderness travel. The final one in this series was Orizaba in Mexico, and that one is more accessible to everybody. It's not nearly as technical. But there too, we flew to Mexico City. We took a bus to, I think it's called Puebla, another large city. And we bought the cheapest bikes that we could find. It was from a little market, like $100 bikes. And we bought bike racks, and then we strapped our boats onto the bikes and biked for, 3, 4, 5 days to get to Orizaba.
Did you film? You should have filmed this and make a documentary of these things. Dude,
I've got little videos of all these. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was carrying a camera for all these.
Yeah.
We climbed Orizaba. We get back down again pretty easy. And then we got to bike. I think we got to bike about 6,000 feet on this rough gravel road. And these bikes were $100 bikes. Like, they were not high quality. One of the guys his brake pads just melted off, like literally off. So he's using his feet to brake, and my handlebars were just so loose in the stem. So it was just like, we're just waiting for catastrophe. But it didn't happen, and we made it down to this river, Barranca Grande it's like the Grand Canyon of, I can't remember the name of it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And so then we paddled for 2 or 3 days in class 3 and 4 with our boat. Wow. It was just so cool, all the way out to the ocean, and had a little driftwood fire, and
incredible.
Like those trips I just wouldn't have even considered that approach, that multi-sport approach, without the Packraft.
Right.
But when it's a 6-pound boat, a 7-pound boat, like it makes it possible. It's really a beautiful thing.
It opens a lot, obviously. Opens a lot of avenues, right? So that's, wow. Kind of hard to top all that, Luc.
Well, let me back it off and make something more accessible for more people. And that's like the paddling on a lake with my wife, with nephew, niece, and having a picnic, doing some fishing off of rivers. They're the same boat, you know, same boat, much less ambitious application.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure, knowing a little bit of you, you live in Alaska and you like the outdoor. There's probably a lot of curiosity of what's around the next bend and the next lake, see what it's like. So you can do that anytime, anywhere, really, right? So
yeah, absolutely. But because the boat is so portable, one of my first impressions was just, I wish I had this 10 years ago. And everywhere that I've gone on vacation, like family vacation to Hawaii or Minnesota or Maine, it's like, there's water in all of those places.
There's pretty much water everywhere. Yeah, exactly.
There's pretty much water everywhere. And if it's a boat that I can literally put in the overhead compartment on an airplane, like, I don't think you can put the paddle. I think maybe the paddles don't go through security well, but you get the idea, right?
So what do you do? You buy a paddle, or there's foldable paddles, I think. I don't know if they're as good.
I would just check the paddle in my luggage.
Check the paddle. Yeah.
But this whole package, everything I need I'm in a dry suit because the water is so cold up here, but dry suit, PFD, helmet, like I can get that all in a little backpack, and really, I mean, an amazing spot would be anywhere with a lot of public transit, like in Europe. You could just bounce around on those trains and paddle to station. That'd be pretty awesome.
Wow. It's actually a guy from New Zealand that got me thinking about that, mentioned that he was into Packraft. So it's spread around the world, definitely. I know I've seen, just searching around, that it seems very prominent Western USA, Canada, the same way, but it's spreading definitely around the world, I think.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so the evolution of Packrafts in Alaska was fairly simultaneous with evolution of Packrafts in Tasmania, Australia, New Zealand. So that community, like Alaska, has a lot of areas that aren't accessible by road.
Right.
And so I think in Tasmania, they were using like inflatable sleeping pads and inner tubes, and somehow figuring out ways to strap things together to make boats that they could take into the backcountry, into the wilderness. So that, those areas have had equally long histories with Packrafts as Alaska. And then, exactly as you say, the mountain states, Montana, Utah, Colorado, in the U.S., but also expanding to the Canadian Rockies and to Eastern Canada, where there's so much high quality water. Europe has a growing community, even though there is such a good road network there. But they just open up new ways to get into the mountains.
Absolutely, I want one just for travel. Definitely. Spending a lot of time in such small boats, what has it taught you about comfort, simplicity, and what do we really need to travel on the water?
I think I I will prepare pretty differently depending on the application. I mean, physically, in terms of the comfort, these boats are really comfortable because it's an inflatable seat.
It's padded automatically.
It's padded, exactly. And it's really easy to adjust the back band and thigh straps and a foot brace if you have those components. So it's really easy to get a comfortable fit. And then what I'm usually trying to calculate, and it's my wilderness risk management, is depending on how remote we're going to go, that changes our exposure to hazards, and it changes who might be available to help if something goes wrong.
Right.
And for the most part, I'm paddling places that we need to do any rescue effort on our own. Like, it's unrealistic that somebody's going to be able to get in to help us. And so I have to sort of balance the weight cost of that safety gear, the throw rope, helmet, PFD dry suit. I'm balancing that with how likely we are to be exposed to rough water. And on some trips, like, my wife and I will make a little commitment ahead of time, and we'll say, okay, we're going to walk around anything that's class 3. And because of that, we're going to justify not bringing a throw rope, something like that, as an example.
Right.
And then when I'm closer to home, where maybe there's a little more support, I'm more inclined to paddle harder water, class 4 water. If things go wrong, I'm with proficient kayakers, or they're near me on the river and we're close to a road and a fire department, this and that. So my comfort in those settings and what I carry is it's pretty calculated. I'm playing this game. What could go wrong? What am I going to do about it? I don't know if that exactly answers your question.
It does. And that's kind of like, yeah, it does change the way you think about the routes and adventures you're taking. I guess you probably have different boats from different occasions and different routes, like you're saying, that are so wild that your comfort is different and so on. So
exactly,
that's great.
I think about I've never been on a sailboat. I've been on larger boats very rarely, but it terrifies me to imagine anchoring a boat and then going to shore for more than 15 minutes, because I think, what if the anchor drifts? What if the boat floats away? So we all have our own, the things that we're comfortable different and uncomfortable zones. With, but I get to take my boat and put it in my pack or sleep with it, whatever. I'm not worried about it disappearing.
Right.
And then I think about folks with bigger boats, and you're sailing the Northwest Passage, or something totally crazy. And it's those are the crazy people. I'll just climb over Denali with this thing.
Yeah, that's not crazy at all. Wow. Let's see. What do you think Packraft says something about how humans can move through wild places today? It obviously opens a lot of things you couldn't do in the past, or it was a lot of different support, like you say, you needed, right?
Yeah, but I think in my adventuring and in my location, nothing has opened up the land as much as a Packraft. And I'm a little bit torn saying that, because I'm thinking, well, skis are pretty
darn good. Yeah.
Pretty darn good at getting over snow. And so maybe that's just, maybe I don't have to say one opens it up more than the other, but they're like skis in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Snow smooths everything out. Skis allow you to stay on top of the brush. It's so much easier to travel a lot of the land in the winter than it is in the summer, at least where I'm at.
Right.
And Packrafts too. I have always been drawn towards efficient travel, and part of that's because my reward is seeing as much as possible. So I like to cover ground.
Yeah.
And if I can cover ground on a bike instead of walking, I want to. And so if there's water, I want to be in the water. And my favorite trips are the ones where I get to change my muscle groups back and forth. So we'll hike, my legs will get tired, and then we'll float, and my arms will get tired, and then we'll hike, my legs will get tired, back and forth. I love that dynamic.
Nice.
I love the immersion that allows me, to spend 4 days, 4 weeks in the wilderness.
Nice.
Yeah. And the Packrafts are a huge part of that. I never sought out water. I grew up on a river. I went to college in Minnesota. Like, it was always around me, but I didn't understand the gift of water, like how it could just bring me to all of these beautiful places until I had the Packraft.
Right. They're highways, really, right? And
yeah.
Indigenous knew that, and they used it that way too, right? So, yeah, absolutely. As packrafting, this might be deeper, has taught you anything else that applies beyond boats?
I think all of my outdoor time, not specific to Packraft, but so I think I've traveled over 12,000 miles here. Let's do that one. 20,000 kilometers.
Right.
Over my, my adult life. And again, I acknowledge I'm privileged to be able to do that. And I wouldn't do that if it wasn't rewarding beyond just the activity.
Right.
So my time outside, which I think a lot of people can relate to, has just made me a better person. It's taught me about patience. It's taught me about communication, leadership, competence. And one of the loudest lessons for me is that things get better. So almost every one of my outings has hard parts, even if it's just a day trip.
Yeah. And
on some of the longer trips, it's more than one day that's hard. And that's like a mini depression cycle, right? It's like, what are we doing? Why am I out here? This is hard, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And,
yeah, when it's raining and it's cold and wet and
yeah, and it's not fun, and it's okay that it's not fun.
That's right.
But I've learned over and over again that in the lowest of lows there, it gets better. And I believe that, and I know that to be true. Like, this sucks, but it gets better. Things get better. And that has been so valuable for me to take that same lesson into the rest of my life, whether it's work or relationships or my budget, whatever I need to grit my teeth through, it gets better. And man, what a gift to have learned that.
Right.
And I learned it in the mountains, and other people learn it different ways. Mm-hmm. And other people maybe don't learn it as bluntly as I have. But, gosh, I'm so grateful to have that in the bank. When things get hard, I'm like, yep, this sucks, and it's gonna get better.
Great lesson. Great point. Really, really good point. What about connection with the world and nature? I know sailing, you don't have a choice. Your connection with the wind, you always imagine. So my listeners are probably tired of my religious talk about that. It connects you to the rhythm of the world. I think sailing, I bet you that's very similar too. You have to, look at the rivers and probably the wind. Although I don't know if you put a sail anytime. I probably would sometimes, but
yeah, you would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, some of my friends we talk about are the outdoors your church or your gym? Mm-hmm. I kind of like that framework.
Right.
And I'm a little bit more on the gym side. I like the physical part, but as I just conveyed to you, that's not to say that these haven't been life-changing experiences for me. So I can have both, but
nice.
The part of what you just said that resonates for me is that I loved learning how to read water for the first time. And I'm still learning how to do it, and I'm getting better at it year by year.
White water you're talking about probably, which is an area I know nothing about, obviously. But.
Well, the reason I'm bringing it up is because I know nothing about air and wind. And when I see people sailing and I see people with kites and hang gliders, paragliders, all that stuff, I'm jealous of them, and I've got friends that do this, and we're looking out at something and they say, oh, look at that bird, there's a draft over there, there's a whatever. And And I'm jealous of that. They're seeing more into the natural world than I am. And I would love that part of sailing. I would love to see wind in that way, in the way that it would help propel me.
But you can read water. So that's something else.
And I think it's the same game. It's
right.
like the senses and that connection with the natural world. That was so rewarding to read water, and I'm certain that it's the same reward that sailors have, and that bikers have, and that skiers have. Like, it's all
right.
That's such a fun process to learn. Like,
correct.
What does it mean when I put all my weight on this side or that edge or that foot or that arm, and get that feedback from the natural world?
Nice. Yeah, I guess you read the water. For me, everything. Where are the rocks? I wouldn't know, right? And I guess a packraft is pretty forgivable. I guess if you have a really, really strong bottom, I would guess that's my thinking of it. But yeah,
they are shockingly durable. It is. I'm constantly surprised. I've put so many miles on my boats, and I've only had trivial punctures, things that I could repair in the field each time.
Yeah, maybe tell us some of those horror stories that have gone good after what are some issues you've encountered and how you go through that?
Yeah, I'll zoom out and make this less personal, because I have part of my outreach work is to sort of monitor close calls and the fatalities the community has experienced. I think globally, I'm aware of something in the low 30s, maybe 32 fatalities. And then I hear about close calls, friends share theirs. I've had my own.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also get to hear them from people in the courses. Most of the people that take my courses have had something scary happen. And so that was their wake up call. And they said, "Oh, I really like this thing." And then,
is it because of white water? Generally?
Yeah. And in Alaska, the cold and the wood.
And the cold water too, right?
Cold water.
Yeah.
So of the known fatalities, half of them were solo paddlers. And so even though that's not a very big data set, 30 points, 50% is a huge proportion of those. So if you're looking for reasons that things go wrong, that one is just screaming out there. And it makes sense, right? If we're on our own in any activity, we've just lost that support.
Correct.
That somebody could reach out a hand, could go downriver, could problem solve, could help us make a decision to avoid being in that situation in the first place. So that's the screaming message from the fatality record. Something that surprised me in the record is how often there have been issues on flat water. And the surprise is that I'm mostly on rivers, and so I see rapids and rocks and wood, and I'm like, oh no, those are my lions and tigers and bears.
Danger all the time, right?
Yeah. And several times now, again globally, the wind picks up in the middle of a crossing, 2-kilometer crossing, 3-kilometer crossing, lake paddle. And the boats just do not do well in the wind. And if you do capsize in that kind of water, the boat is just going to get blown away.
Run away from you, right?
Yep. And so at least one of those that I know, or there was actually, the autopsy was hypothermia. The guy was just in the water too long.
Yeah.
And so we talk quite a bit about where leashes are appropriate. And there are some environments where a leash could make a big difference to help you keep track of the boat, get back in it, or even just hold on to it for flotation.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to mess with a leash on the river, because there I've got the potential to get wrapped around a rock or a tree and wrapped up in that leash.
Right.
And there have been that kind of incidents as well.
Right.
But this is the value of sort of keeping track of incidents and paying attention, is that I had not been considered open water as a hazard. I thought open water is like, that's your picnic. That's your catch a fish and go,
That's right.
But not if there's wind.
I guess, on crossing, people do attempt crossing, you're saying, with that.
Sometimes you have to for some of the, one of these was Greenland. One of these was maybe Argentina, like big bodies of water. And I think your audience probably again knows more about this than I do, but fetch, like when there's a long open water and the wind is, then the waves pick up and the wind picks up, and that can happen so quickly.
Right.
Apparently, I haven't experienced that, but there's maybe 3 or 4 fatalities in the record that were all wind on open water.
What else should our listeners know? We've covered quite a bit.
I guess, I mean, we haven't said explicitly the importance of the life vest.
Right. Right.
And that also is represented in the incident record.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. It's not,
it's a say around here, and I can't understand people not wearing that. So I just don't get it. But
I would say that the Alaska Packraft community is actually doing incredibly well at wearing the right equipment. And part of that is that I'm part of this very intentional safety culture effort and just trying to normalize, like, oh, you're going on the water, of course you have a life vest on. And that's working within this community, but it's partly because there are so many people and role models and athletes within the space that are modeling that best behavior. I see more of an issue in the national record, in the United States record, of kayakers and canoers and folks there not wearing the PFD helmet, tri-suit, whatever they need for the kind of water they're on. But man, that's a no-brainer for me. It's just like, if I'm on the water, I gotta have this. I gotta have the vest.
It is. Every year, there's stories here in the summer, people, drowning because they don't have a life vest, and just incredible to me. Anyway, but yeah, that's the most important. You got to do it. Definitely.
And it's pretty darn easy. It's so like easy. It's not there's a huge investment.
There's so many
they're
different
warm,
vests.
they're comfortable.
It's not like the old days you had this.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love, I got a little pocket there for my phone and a knife and a whistle. Like I feel naked without it.
Yeah, totally. Anything else like you can think of?
I don't know. I think the thing I'm nervous about is that with my examples were so extreme, with my big mountain applications. I want to leave people with the impression that these boats are for anyone on any water. It's like one of my friends has said it really eloquently. I won't be able to remember it exactly right, but it's like, if you can imagine it on water, it's like, you can do it. You can do it with a Packraft. And I think that's really true. And I think that can be very family friendly and not scary experience for folks that are looking for those.
Thank you so much, Luc. It's been fantastic talking to you. I think there's a lot to learn here. Your book is probably a great introduction. More than introduction, I mean, there's a lot of safety items into it, so it's really, I think that's important. People pay attention to that, a lot of people don't pay attention to that. They go in the water and think it's easy. And it's,
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. And it was, that was a passion project that came out of wanting to help others. And it has been so rewarding to have it be so well received. And a lot of that was because of the illustrator, Sarah Glaser, who just brought to life so many of the concepts that I was trying to capture in words. But it's been hugely rewarding to see. I think we've sold 10,000 copies, which is crazy for a little,
for such a niche. You think it's a niche, like we say the same. It's a niche, that's a niche, right? So, yeah.
And it is. But it was like, I was writing it after dinner at home in the living room and just like piecing my history together through. Anyway, it's been really neat to have it so well received within the community.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I think we'll all learn a lot about it, and I think a lot of us will want to travel with, definitely. So appreciate it. Thank you very much, Luc.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed talking with you, and hopefully I'll get some experience sailing and reading the wind like you all can do.
You'll find all the links in the show notes and on NanoCruising.com. Thanks for tuning in to the NanoCruising podcast, where the boats are small, the dreams are big, and the budgets are, well, optimistically tiny. If you want to keep up with new episodes, bonus bits, or the occasional questionable idea and testing, make sure you're on the email list. No spam, unless it's the kind you fry in a pan while cruising. Come hang out on the NanoCruising Facebook group too. It's full of friendly sailors, smart advice, and the occasional heated debate about whether bucket counts as essential safety gear. It does. And if you enjoy the show and want to help keep the lights on, you can support us on Patreon. It's totally optional, but usually appreciated. Until next time, get out there, have fun, and remember, seize your own adventure, preferably without capsizing.
Just humming, no engine roar, just a little boat and an open shore, canvas snapping, the kettle's on, world feels big when the boat feels small. We don't need much, just wind and tide, a chart, a compass, and time to ride. For a harbor, stars for a roof, salt on the deck and stories for proof. From quiet creeks to a weathered bay, if it floats, we're on our way. No marina lights, no golden gate, just the pull of wind and the call to lug or gaff, plans go wrong and we laugh. If you can tow it, if you can row, there's a long way left to go. NanoCruising, small boats, big seas, real adventure, no guarantees. If you've dreamed it, if you dare, there's